The Xbox One wasn't widely known as a console of choice for fans of Japanese developed games. However, the platform did feature some notable titles that you may want to check out. Are these great games? Not exactly. And are they console exclusive? Not all of them. But regardless, here's our top 10 Japanese developed games on Xbox One you probably didn't play, but should. Swery 65 is known for all sorts of shenanigans, and while Deadly Premonition has been controversial for various reasons, D4 proved that with the right studio backing his work, he was also capable of creating something that was not only innovative, but also functional. D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die took place in Boston, and like most of Swery's past work, it explored the city's unique everything from the thick accents to the chowders. As a game, it was like Life is Strange on steroids, complete with its own unique interpretation of memory-based time travel. The game was also surprisingly enjoyable when played with Xbox One's short-lived Kinect device. Sadly, the series ended on a cliffhanger after Season 1, and while it still is worth checking out today, be prepared to be left wanting more. This legendary shmup IP saw its 5th installment land exclusively on Xbox One, and it remained there for quite some time. Raiden 5 was meant to continue the trend of STGs that players saw for Xbox 360 in Japan, but sadly this didn't quite continue on Xbox One. Raiden 5 is probably the weakest game in the series, but still a fine shooter all the same, and it is a great entry point for those unfamiliar with the Raiden series, backing its crisp visual styles and an excellent soundtrack, and those lucky enough to import the limited physical print were able to get their hands on a soundtrack disc. Natsuki Chronicle went through quite the development hell, finally launching towards the end of 2019 just in time for Christmas, and after multiple delays, it was good enough to finally see it exist. But thankfully the shmup gameplay offered was something refreshingly unique and fun, with multiple game modes such as a surprisingly engaging story mode. Natsuki Chronicle is definitely a hidden gem when it comes to STGs, especially making use of a regenerated shield mechanic rather than instant deaths. Japanese developer Experience was probably one of the biggest supporters of Xbox 360 back in the day, developing a few Japan-exclusive dungeon RPGs. Stranger of Sword City has been available on a few platforms, with the Switch remastered on the horizon, but for a while the only two places you could play it were Xbox One and Vita. Stranger of Sword City is still a cool experience on Xbox One that will surprise JRPG fans. It's also worth digging up a physical print in Japan if you are a collector. The best part, the language changes to English as soon as you pop in the disc. It still surprises people that Steins Gate began life on the Xbox 360, and even more so how the hit anime Psycho Pass had its first video game adaptation on Xbox One, of all places. Psycho Pass Mandatory Happiness was rather well received among visual novel fans, and especially by fans of the anime, and so it was only a matter of time before it was localized primarily for PlayStation platforms. Many aren't aware that with a little bit of research, you can actually learn to play the game in English on Xbox One. Gameplay has you taking on the role of an amnesiac inspector who is piecing together the memories of her past. Players can also take on the role of an enforcer who is searching for a missing partner. Gameplay has players preemptively stopping crimes based on the psychological state of the suspects. They're expected to answer questions during dialogue in hopes to get to one of the game's good endings. A launch title for Xbox One which remains exclusive to the platform, Dead Rising 3 is argued by some to be the best action game in the series, by taking the zombie mowing gameplay of the series and situating it in a Grand Theft Auto style world that was crammed with content, from building all sorts of weapons and cars to epic boss battles. Xbox One couldn't have asked for a better launch title, and fans continue to demand a port for other consoles. Yes, Capcom Vancouver developed it, and yes, it still counts because it belongs to a Japanese IP holder and was a natural evolution of Inafune's vision. BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma Extend was the very last time BlazBlue or anything remotely related to Guilty Gear ever appeared on the Xbox system. Chrono Phantasma Extend remains one of the best entries in the franchise. It encompasses everything that makes BlazBlue one of the best fighting games out there, and even with subsequent entries like Central Fiction, Chrono Phantasma Extend still offers an immense fighting game package on console. Panzer Dragoon Orta is still an exclusive title on the original Xbox, and the spiritual successor to Sega's legendary IP also found its way to Xbox One in the form of Crimson Dragon. Originally developed for Xbox 360 with the Kinect in mind, Crimson Dragon remains a pretty cool release that is still quite enjoyable even now. It offers the classic rail shooter gameplay that Panzer Dragoon is known for, but adds plenty of replay value thanks to many upgradable dragons. Surprisingly, it is also a blast in multiplayer. While the series is still largely niche, you can't really go wrong with a game that allows you to ride on dragons. One of the most underrated games in the original Xbox was from the mind of Yuki Futasugi, the creator of Panzer Dragoon himself. A sequel to Phantom Dust was planned for Xbox One, but was suddenly and unceremoniously cancelled. To make up for it, Microsoft remastered the original Phantom Dust for Xbox One and released it for free, with online multiplayer intact. The experience holds up nicely, offering a deep and interesting take on the deck-building RPG game, but situating it within a fast-paced arena fighter. It's basically Power Stone meets Magic the Gathering, and we're all in. In the early days of Xbox One and digital gaming, there was no reboot and reimagining cooler than Strider. Developed by Double Helix, who would also develop the excellent Killer Instinct reboot for Xbox One before being purchased by Amazon, Strider was a refreshing remake of the 1989 arcade hit. Purists hated it, but for most of us, it was one of the more memorable 2.5D action games that was backed by stellar production values for this time. To this day, you can actually still find the fabled Xbox One physical release on import sites that never came to be. And that's our list. Thank you for watching. Please let us know any Xbox One games developed by Japanese developers that we might have missed. I'm pretty sure we hit all 10 of them, but be sure to remind us if we missed any.